Hello, you're listening to Queer Everything, a queer of color podcast about thriving in the world while being at odds with it. I'm Lena Rafiq Sheikh. In today's episode, I'm sharing a conversation that I had with two guys from a cultural affinity group that I'm part of for LGBTQ Muslims, Ali and Mohammed. Ali is originally Palestinian and Mohammed is Ethiopian. And like me, they both came to the US as young adults. In this conversation, we touch on a variety of topics, ranging from how each of them first became aware of their queerness and how they came to terms with it, reconciling their identities with the cultural and or religious messaging that they got about LGBTQ people, and about telling people close to them. This was a very moving conversation for me, both because it touches on tender topics and because being in community with these two and other queer Muslims has been so personally meaningful. I'm very excited to be sharing this conversation with you. And we're recording. Hi, Mohammed, and hi, Ali. It is wonderful to have you here. I've known the both of you for varying lengths of time, and I've been very excited to have this conversation. So for context, I know Mohammed and Ali through a queer Muslim group that I'm a part of, and I approached them both when I told them about the podcast, about having a conversation about how they came to the group, what it's meant for them, and their journeys as queer men, navigating culture and sexuality and all the other things we navigate living in this present day and age. Mohammed, would you introduce yourself briefly to the people who are listening?
Yes. Hi, my name is Mohammed. I'm in my mid-30s. I live in the US. I'm originally from Ethiopia, and I've been part of the queer Muslim group for about 7 years now. I found it through a generic online search, and it's become my queer Muslim community here where I live.
And how about you, Ali?
I'm 25 years old. I was born and raised in Kuwait. I'm Palestinian by ethnicity, and currently I'm in the US for my training. I heard about the queer Muslim group, funny enough, from Grindr. So that's how I got to found the group, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be here.
That's actually a good story. So would you mind telling it?
So yeah, somebody messaged me on Grindr and said, "Hey, are you Palestinian?" And I'm like, "Yes," because I have my Instagram linked to my Grindr. And yeah, he was like, "You should join this Muslim group if you would like. We have an iftar coming up towards the end of Ramadan. It would be nice, and there's no pressure. You don't have to be practicing. It's just a space for everyone to get together who comes from a similar background." And I was literally manifesting that for myself, so it felt like that came true.
Mohammed, I'm curious to hear what your experience was like first connecting with the group, because you've been around for a while.
So I started searching for the group when I moved here, and I couldn't find it. I was searching gay Muslim, lesbian Muslim, LGBT Muslim, and nothing would come up. And then 2 years later, I learned about the word queer, and I tried queer Muslims, and then it came up. I was always searching for a group like that, and I was at a time where I was struggling to reconcile between my sexuality and my religion. And like the first 2 years was honestly wasted because I've been searching a lot. But then when I found it, I joined, and there were different people that I met there on different levels of practicing and religiosity, some who have reconciled, some who haven't. And then since I was in that transition point where I was really questioning everything, I didn't find that at that moment when I joined the group, because the group is very, how do you say it? It's not stable. Like the same people are not there always. Like people come in and out, they move, they change jobs, or they graduate and leave. So it's very transitionary. So at that time, I didn't find a group that fit me. So I stayed away for a little bit. And then someone reached out of the blue from the organizers and said, "Hey, Mohammed, how are you? I've seen you in one of the meetups. What's up with you? Would you like to come back again?" So there was a moment that I needed a community at that time. And I joined that group. There were discussions at that time about sexuality, about reconciling faith, And it was the thing that I needed, that I found there when I rejoined it the second time. And I've been there since. It became the base of my friendships in this city. Most of my friends are from this group. And I think the discussions and the sharing the experiences with different people helped me get where I am now.
Wonderful. And then Ali, what was your experience first joining the group like?
Yeah, I would say mine has been, I only recently found out about the group, maybe in May. And I would say it was definitely such an odd experience to see everyone around me practicing, or not even necessarily practicing, but coming from the same cultural faith background, where it was just normalized being Muslim and queer at the same time without having to justify who I am or kind of explain my existence to either myself, my God, or whoever it may be. You know, at some point during the first iftar I went to, we all got together and prayed, men and women alike, you know, not favoring who stands in front of the other. Should you wear a headscarf? It didn't matter. It was all about how you practice your own faith and how you felt more comfortable. And honestly, that was such an enriching experience to be a part of.
Yeah, I have to say that's one of the most remarkable and beautiful things about the group for me as well. I remember at this last iftar that the invitation was come pray, men, women, Sunni, Shia, we don't care, right? Men, women, and non-binary people. And I really appreciated both how accepting and open it was, and actually how queer it was, and what a difference it was in some ways from the usual spaces.
Yeah. Even like one of the members there had told me, you know, it's such a unique experience to be able to talk to someone else who's queer and Muslim, because normally when you're with other queer people, you have to explain your religion to them. And then when you're with Arabs or other Muslims, you have to explain to them your queerness, and they can never understand.
Right.
So this felt like a space where you didn't have to explain yourself.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely intentional. You know, how we set up the invitation and how we've set up the space where it's mixed gender, no divisions. I mean, we are people who have been pushed out from many spaces, and this is the one space that brings all queer and Muslim people. So we didn't want to replicate what happens in the mainstream, like division on sectarian lines or gender divide or things like that. We tried to make it as broad as possible to accept every level of practice, every level of religiosity. And even in our invitations, if you notice, it was there, like whether we were practicing or not practicing, whether we were praying or not praying. And some people had questions about that because the title says queer Muslims. So they thought it was a religious group, which it isn't. It's a community group. It's a cultural. So anybody with any affiliation with Islam and queerness was welcome. And that's how we were able to bring so many people under one roof.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space. And I have so much respect, appreciation, and admiration for how it's been set up, because I'm very grateful for it. It's made a huge difference in my life as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So both of you did not grow up in the United States like me.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm curious to hear a little bit about each of your stories growing up, and then to the extent that you want to share when you realized you were queer, and then what it was like coming here. I can tell you that for me, as soon as I moved to the States, I was 18, I had this moment where I was like, oh, there's so much that I've been carrying in me that is about my environment more than it is about me. And I had this process at a young age of really searching through, okay, what is intrinsically me and what am I going along with? Because it's just the water that I'm swimming in. And that was very helpful for me being able to accept myself. So I'm curious what each of your experiences were like. Maybe Mohammed, do you want to start?
Okay, sure. So I grew up in the Middle East, and then I moved back to Ethiopia around high school. I finished high school in Ethiopia. I worked for a bit. I'm in college and I worked for a bit. And then that's when I moved to the US. I think I was about 25 or 26 when I came here. I discovered or realized my sexuality around 19, which was kind of late, but in those days, I think it was kind of early because there was no information around me. There was no reference. There was no representation on movies or books or any sort of that. and the internet was slow. You could say that it was the dark ages in a way. Yeah, it's funny that it was like just 15 years ago. I discovered it because, like anybody, I had crushes in high school, and then I started questioning myself, what's wrong with me? And the only reference that I know is from the religion that I am haram, or what I'm doing. I mean, I didn't do anything. The feelings that I had would bring the doom to my country, to my people. And yeah, it was such a confusing time. And there was the problem that I had that time was there was no reference to find out about me. Luckily, a few years later, there was the dial-up internet, so I could go on the dial-up in a very slow connection, try to find people like me, try to connect with others, or even read about the concept, like what are the feelings that I'm having? Like I'm having a crush on a boy, and this is very strange to me. I haven't heard of that. And is this the sin that Allah punished the Qawm Lut for? It was such a confusing time. And on top of that, I was very religious. I was brought up in a very religious household. I wouldn't say conservative or put those labels, because those labels mean so many things for different people. But a traditional family that follows Islam, that prays 5 times a day in the mosque. My father would wake us up for Fajr prayer. And I was very involved religiously. So for a person like that who tries to keep up with everything that the faith demands, I remember like when I was maybe 11 or 12, I wouldn't sleep if I didn't pray Isha. I would feel so guilty about it. So for a person like that to become gay, that was such a shocking moment for me. And on top of that, I didn't know anybody around me. I didn't see it on TV. The only thing that I have heard about is, like I said, from the Quran or from the news, because I think a couple of times there was some gay marriage that was allowed in Netherlands or in the US. So there was literally nothing at that time. But when I came to the US, it was like years later after I realized much more about myself. So I was really at a good place, but I just needed community like me. That's when the time that I came to the US and I found this group.
Great. Thank you. And how about you, Ali?
So before I jump into my answer, I just want to say, Mohammed, that sounds honestly like I can't imagine what that must have been like growing up, not even having the ability to see someone else reflected in you. And honestly, that just shows how good of a person you are. I'm always fascinated by people that were able to kind of break out of their bubble and realize that there was more out there without the resources. There are so many people I know now back home in Kuwait who are queer but deny it and plan to marry a woman, plan to ignore their life, plan to never admit that they're gay. So for you to be able to just be brave enough to just say that, I think that's amazing. But anyway, so it's... My background is actually very similar in that I grew up in Kuwait. I'm Palestinian, didn't have a lot of Palestinian people around me to identify with. So I feel like my identity never truly developed to what it is today. I just kind of hid behind my mom's coat. I've always been the kid that hides behind his mom. And growing up, the first time I kind of got a hint that I was a little different than everyone else is that I'd watch some cartoons, like let's say Little Mermaid, and I'd see Prince Eric, and he would elicit some responses in me that I couldn't understand. Why was I fixating on this prince who's meaningless in the story when it's all about the Little Mermaid? So I kind of knew something was off. I didn't have the contextual ability to piece it together and say, oh, it's because I'm gay. I never actually admitted it to myself until much later in my adolescence. And it's interesting that you said that you developed crushes, because I think for the longest time, I didn't know they were called crushes. I didn't even know I was having a crush. It was almost like, oh, I kind of have this weird feeling when I'm next to this boy where I kind of like him, but I don't know what it means. I never had that, oh, my book fell and we kind of touched hands and had a spark moment that you see on TV, because I didn't know that that was acceptable nor normal. So growing up, I definitely compartmentalized the two Alis in my head, creating like a Ali A who got to kind of be gay in my own mind and Ali B who existed in real life. And it wasn't until going to college when I had my first interaction with another gay man. And then coming out to my best friend, shout out Fatma, love you. But she kind of saved my life, because if I wasn't able to confide in someone who I truly was, I don't think I'd be here today, being able to just share my story. She kind of showed me that it was okay to be gay. It was okay to just be who I was supposed to be, and that God at the end of the day doesn't hate me for it, because he made me this way. And there has to be a reason for that. And it wasn't until coming to the States that I feel like I fully took off the shed of Ali B and kind of just became myself. And I've been more myself now than I ever have before. And I know that if I were to ask my parents now, they would think I'm so much happier living my life currently, and they wouldn't be able to tell that it's because I'm just being myself. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my journey into how now I feel just so comfortable in my skin and ready to just talk about it.
It's interesting, Ali, when you said there is Ali A and Ali B. I had a similar thing where I created an online persona where I would try to find other people and do online chats and share experiences and learn from them. I was just interviewing other people, like, what do you feel? Like, what does this make you feel? Oh, so when you see a guy, like, I feel this way, like very, very basic questions I used to ask. And there were so many strangers that I've met later on in person or that I've never met, who would sit for hours and answer questions for me. That's what answered so many questions that I had deep in me and helped me realize what I was. When you said about the crushes, I knew that I had crushes, but I didn't label them as gay. As far as maybe when I was like 13 or 14, I never felt I was different. I just knew that I had those crushes, and this was my little dirty secret, because something about it, I felt that was wrong to talk about. Or, I mean, in the Middle East, even having a girlfriend is a taboo at that age because gender is segregated. So I thought, okay, this is just another naughty thing that I have. This is just for boys. But I didn't label it as gay, which, I mean, in hindsight, looks so dumb. Like, how could you not realize that? But I didn't have the names. I didn't have the label. I didn't know what homosexual was. I just knew that I like guys. And that's my secret. But when I grow up, I'm going to get married to a woman and have children and things like that. It's when I had that crush, like my strongest crush, I would call it, in high school, that I started really questioning myself. Like, why do I have crush on this guy? Okay, this is a guy. And that's when it clicked, like, oh, you could be gay. And that realization just shocked me. It just shocked me. Like, how could this good boy, Mohammed, who prays 5 times a day, who's from a good family, how can I be gay? Like, I felt I was cursed by God. In fact, I think even I felt betrayed by God that he would make me gay out of all the people. It was a shock. And yeah, I mean, I will answer the rest in further questions, but that was my moment when I knew about myself.
Don't you feel, though, Mohammed, that I can say this now, having lived the life that I lived, that I think being gay has been the biggest blessing in my life, because I don't think I would have worked half as hard as I did in my life to be where I am today, to get the fuck out of the Middle East. Are we allowed to curse?
Curse away, yeah.
To be able to come here to the States, I feel like it really was the driving force, the flame under my feet, because it felt like life or death at the time when I was 18, thinking that my only chance of living my life was to leave. And I don't think I would have had that drive had it not been for the whole queerness thing. And being gay also, I think, afforded me the ability to be empathic more than I ever would have been if I was a cisgendered straight man. Because I think there are so many things in life, when you're gay, you kind of start questioning, because you realize that things aren't the way they seem. Things aren't the way people told you they should be. That what people are telling you is the right way might not be necessarily, and that's okay. That everyone has their own life, everyone has their own issues. And yeah, I actually thank God now for making me the way that I am. And even when I think of my parents, for example, I know if I told them completely about my sexuality and my extracurricular activities, they would not be excited. But I wish I could kind of link to them that the person that I am now, who they love very much, the only reason he's that way is because he's gay. Mm. If I was straight, I would be a completely different person. Mm. Who knows, maybe in another life, straight Ali is a homophobic, gross straight man, you know? So, yeah.
Well, gay Mohammed was a very homophobic man. And realizing that I was gay, just like you, I was a questioning person from the beginning, but this helped me question things more, because it became so personal, and the conflict and the contradiction that me, Mohammed, the very religious Muslim guy who leads prayers at home, or sometimes I used to even do the adhan in the mosque when the muaddin is late. I was that kind of person, and I became the gay person. So that made me question all my reality that's around me. Something that being gay helped me was developing empathy, because I think I mean, in my cis straight personality or way of thinking, I would have been a very arrogant man. I would have been not as humble as I am now, because this humbled me, because I became the thing that I hated, or I realized the thing that I hated, that I was conditioned to hate. And now I had to love that person, because I cannot divorce me. So switching from the majority, the very religious that condemns my life, and becoming that person, you know, I had to play both roles. And then being in the minority that's oppressed, I had to humble myself, because I guarantee you, if I wasn't gay, I would have been the most homophobic person. Mm-hmm. And that actually took its toll on me, because I struggled to accept myself because of that. So it humbled me. So in a way, yes, it's a blessing, even though I suffered a lot through it. There were so many ups and downs. I mean, right now I'm talking freely about it, but it wasn't easy to get here. Mm-hmm. But it helped me become a better person than I was before.
I'm really glad that you're able to be here today. I'm really glad that despite all the tribulations, that you managed to come out of it so much stronger because of it. Because I feel exactly the same way. I don't think growing up gay is the easiest thing in the world, especially in the Middle East. Like, I struggled a lot as well with thinking, I don't belong here. What's the point of even living? What's the point of continuing? I couldn't see a future. It just looked very black. And it wasn't until I realized that, oh, wait, people can be gay and happy. People can live their life the way they want to without caring what other people think of them. And it took me a long time to reach that point, because I think our society teaches us that if we don't have the validation of our community, then we're nothing. If our community doesn't accept us, then there must be something wrong with us, and that we were going to fall to the wayside. But I learned the hard way that I don't need the approval of my aunties and uncles. I don't need the people back home to point a finger at me and say, you should be like him. I don't care. As long as if I'm happy, now I know that's the most important thing. And obviously at the same time, taking care of the people I love and my chosen family and everything that comes with that. I think that's what matters most, as opposed to just living your life for others.
Yeah, look at us. We made it.
Yeah. Our traumas and all.
Yeah, triumphs now.
Yeah, triumphs.
So both of you sound like you've been on a journey around this. For me, moving geography was really helpful, as was being in a place where my family wasn't, and where I could form a new kind of community. And from here, I've been negotiating my relationships with family, telling people, not telling people, etc. And it's always a dance, and the dance is still happening. And I'm curious what that has been like for both of you.
For me, I think being away took off the social pressure, because I was in a very stressful state, I think. And I've associated being gay and being stressed as the same thing, because for some time after I came to the US, there was a time I said to myself, oh, I don't feel gay anymore. Like, I'm not gay. But then when I questioned myself, like, what do you mean you're not gay? Like, you have a boyfriend, which I had a boyfriend at that point. I said, well, the thing that I didn't have was the stress, like the society, like looking over your shoulder, like just checking where you're going, or telling like different, evasive conversations so that people don't find out about you. All that was gone. So I didn't have to do any of that. So for me, what the US did was take out that social pressure, and nobody's watching me. I can be myself. I can do whatever I want. Not that I was doing anything. It's just that I had a cloud above me when I was back home. That was like, I was the black sheep everywhere. I would just imagine that everybody knows about me, and the next thing is I'll be killed or murdered. I was under that stress the whole time. When it comes to family and my relationship with family, I come from a very tight-knit, very close family. And there was a moment when I was back home that I was afraid that I'm going to lose them. That was a fear. Either they would be rejecting me, I would be disowned, or all of that, negative thoughts. But gradually, as I became more competent in myself and being tired of, like you said, Ali A and Ali B, I have Mohammed A and Mohammed online. I came out to my best friend. That's, at least 5 or 6 years after I made other gay friends. Now I needed someone who knows me from my other life, like from my real life. And that reconciled something in me, like online Mohammed and the regular Mohammed just fused into one person. And a few years after that, I came out to my sister, which brought me closer to my family. Before that, I was isolating myself. I was distancing myself from them because I was afraid that at some point they will reject me. So why don't I reject them first? So I was distancing myself from them. But then I couldn't handle that because I'm really close with my family. My best friends are my cousins. And then when I came out to her, and she gave me the assurance which I needed at that moment, that Mohammed, it's okay that you're gay. I will always love you. And she wasn't like, she was homophobic, but then she became like more open-minded. And then when I came out to her, she said, Mohammed, if you are gay, this thing is not a choice. This thing is not wrong. We have been taught something wrong. Like, I know that you didn't make a bad choice. So that also gave me the assurance. Okay, I'm okay, even if she can accept me. I was like halfway accepting myself, but that gave me a good assurance. And then a few months after that, I came out to my brother and my other sister, and that also reconciled my relationship with my family. And I was like, if everybody else rejects me, at least I have them. So when I came to the US, I still had my relationship with my family. I used to pretend with my dad and my mom. I didn't come out to them at that point. But what helped me come here is like alleviate the social pressure.
Wow, it's so funny, Mohammed, that you mentioned the sister story, because Lena, you know this because we talked about this on the phone. That's exactly what happened to me. I told my sister, and she was the first family member who, when she accepted me, it just changed everything, because immediately I knew that I'm okay. I'm okay, because she said the same thing. She said, Ali, I love you. And if you're gay, that means there must be something wrong with the way we've perceived gay people. Exactly the same thing happened. So I'm just glad that both of us had sisters who could do that for us. Not everyone is as lucky. So I'm grateful for that. So to answer the original question, so I would say I kind of had this consternating feeling throughout my teenage years, primarily in med school, towards the end of my studies. I kind of felt like I needed to tell my parents. And it was this nagging thought that if I didn't tell my parents, how could they accept me for who I was? How could they love me? And I kind of spiraled in a way into negative thoughts where I just felt like if they couldn't love me, then how could I love myself? I just needed their validation, because at the end of the day, our family, they're so important to us. And I think this is a concept from where we come from, family is just such an important part of our existence that I just felt like if I couldn't include my parents in on this, I wasn't living life properly. And it took a long time for me to be able to let that go. And it was friends and family that kind of helped me understand that at the end of the day, my parents love me no matter what. And I know this, but they just do not have the tools or the ability to understand what I'm going through, to understand the experiences that I've had. And that's okay. And I know that they try their best to put themselves in my shoes, but they just come from a different time, a time when they weren't even allowed to express themselves. So for me to be able to express myself, they just see that as kind of shattering the fourth wall of their existence, because then they'll have to start asking themselves questions of their own identity, which they haven't been able to do.
Right.
So I really think from that front, I'm at peace in terms of knowing that my parents at this juncture would not be a part of my life fully, even though my mom kind of knows, but that's a long story. I will say that the whole family dynamic, coming here in the US and making a family of my own, you know, I met my better half here. John, shout out to you. He is my first relationship, and we've been together now for 3 years. And I feel like feeling that love for the first time, not just the sexual chemistry of an encounter, a single random encounter that I've been so accustomed to growing up, just using Grindr as my only way of expressing myself. This was something real and tangible. And experiencing that love, I just know that that can't be wrong. The way that I feel about him and the way that we are together, I just know that that can't be something that God doesn't want me to do, because it's very beautiful. And I'm so grateful to have met him, or to have just been able to experience that with someone, because I know so many of us back home don't get that opportunity. Actually, Mohammed, I did also have another question for you. You reminded me. Who was the first person, or when was the first time you said out loud that you are gay?
First time I said I was gay.
Good question.
Okay, there were two moments. Okay. There was the first time where I realized that I was gay after having that very, very strong crush. There was a friend of mine who moved to the US, and I started missing him so much. And then I started questioning myself, like, why do I miss this guy? Okay, he's a guy like me. Oh, am I gay? So there was a moment. I think I was in the bathroom facing the mirror. And I remember my face and the shock in my face. And I can't be gay. And I immediately washed my face, thinking that something would change. And then for a year or two, I resisted it, that I was gay. I would just tell myself, I'm not gay, I'm not gay, I'm not gay the whole time. And then 2 years later, I think, there was a moment where I had a crush on another person, and I had this strong emotions inside me that I couldn't resist anymore. And then I said, okay, I have to admit it. Like, there is no way running away from this. Like, just saying I'm not gay all the time, that's not going to train my mind out of these negative thoughts. So it was May 15, which I always remember, around 6 p.m.
Wow.
That's very specific.
Yes. And I celebrate that as my gay birthday, actually.
Nice.
Every year. I say, okay, this is the moment that I just said it. And it's such a big weight that got lifted out of my chest, because I said it for the first time. I am gay.
You said it to yourself.
Yes, I am gay.
Interesting.
Yeah, before that, I wasn't gay, after my realization. And then when I said I was gay, that's when I started my journey of trying to find other people and connecting with people and asking them, okay, now I've admitted that I'm gay. What does it mean? Yeah. But something that you said, Ali, that reminded me that you were more compassionate towards your parents and more understanding than I was. When I first realized that I was gay, or through my troubles, I was very intent on hiding from them, because I was honestly terrified from them. I was afraid that they're going to kill me. Okay, not even disown me. I was terrified of that. That was like in my darkest thoughts. And then gradually, as I became more accepting of myself and building up my confidence, my thoughts towards them changed. It started evolving. So it went, oh, they're going to kill me, to they're going to disown me, they're going to cut me off. And then a few years later, oh, I don't want them to get a heart attack or get shocked because of me. And then a few years later, oh, I mean, those are adults. They have faced so many things in their lives. I mean, this is, yes, big, bad news, but they will be shocked, but I think they'll come around. And gradually I moved to a level where it was like, just like you said, okay, I don't want to burden them with this. They come from a different time. They may not understand it. So, okay, let me keep it a secret. And then after a while, I was like, okay, I cannot live hiding away from them. So I have to tell them, and they're going to accept me. It's going to take them time, and I'm willing to give them that time. So let me tell them. And I started preparing them how to tell them. It was like a long-term plan. It took like 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I was like, okay, how can I doubt my parents' love for me? I reached at that point where I said, okay, one day they're going to find out that I'm gay, one way or another. And when they do, whether it's from me or other people, if someone outs me, I just imagined my mom asking me, like, how could you doubt my love for you? Whether you're a sinner or whatever you are, how could you doubt me? And then I said, oh, she might say that. So I need an answer for that. So I don't doubt her love for me. So I started preparing her. And eventually, years later, I came out to my mom. But I moved through that journey, but you were much more compassionate towards them.
No. So when you said that I wanted to stop you, I definitely had those feelings where I actually bordered on harboring hatred, especially towards my dad, who now in hindsight, he's the sweetest man ever and has done nothing but provide for us. And actually his love language is just providing. So having that kind of father figure growing up, you know, I see his compassion, but at the same time, I see how strong he is in his quote unquote masculinity. And I see how important that is to him. And there's also a big age gap between my dad and I. It's he's in his 70s and I'm 25. So it's almost 50 years. So that definitely added another layer. And on top of that, he comes from a village in Palestine. He didn't have, as you said, no internet, nothing. You know, all he grew up with was the people in his village, what he was told by his parents, his religion. That's it. So I think for him, and him and I have actually had arguments about gay people before, and people with tattoos and people, and he never once for a second thought, I'm bringing this up because I was gay. Because to him, he doesn't know what a gay person is. He doesn't even know what it would look like. He doesn't know anyone who's gay, so he can't relate or try to imagine that that's a possibility. For him, it's a mental illness, and it's a way to go straight to hell. You know, a ticket straight to hell. But Lena, as we discussed on the phone as well before, I kind of confronted him about it one day where I was just like, he had mentioned something about people with tattoos having mental illnesses. So I stopped him right there and said, what's your thesis statement? Like, where is this coming from? What is your proof? What are your sources? And he's like, Islam says tattoos are haram. And we were at the dining table and my uncle was sitting across from us. And I point at him and say, well, Uncle Yahya over there drinks alcohol. But we're okay with that. Shouldn't he also go straight to hell with your logic? And I think in that moment, he gets mad when he's confronted, which as any other like hetero man from that generation does. They don't like to be confronted by their sons. But he kind of was like, and I stopped him before he even answered and said, I know the answer. It's because it's easier for you to justify not hating on him because you know someone in your life who drinks alcohol, and it's easier to justify your faith to then hate on people that you don't know, like people with tattoos or gay people.
I mean, he does know a gay person rather.
Exactly. That's the thing. That's the funny thing, is that he can't even see that his own son is gay. So I think that was like the peak of my anger towards my father, which has with time subsided because, like you, Mohammed, I realized that at the end of the day, they do love me no matter what. And even though this is something that he can't wrap his mind around because he does not have the tools for, I think that's fine. in just knowing that this person loves you no matter what and would literally just die for you, you know? It seems so contradictory that being gay is the end all be all to them, but it's because they were taught to think that way. They were taught to think it is life ending, you know, that, and it's not that they're scared of what people might think. They're more scared of what it means for my soul or what it means for my future, because they too can't see a future. If I had 25 years to reconcile being gay, they don't have that experience. It took me 25 years to be okay with it. So I can only imagine what it must be like for them if I were to just suddenly tell them at this point in time.
So you have not told your father?
I have not. I did tell my mother, but no, my dad, I think that's one I've decided maybe I'm at that stage, like you said, Mohammed, where I just don't want to burden them. Maybe in a few years, I decide I'm going to tell him. I don't know yet, but I do plan on getting married. And when I do want to invite my parents. And that's going to be something that's
beautiful.
Yeah, that's, I don't know how that'll go.
Mohammed, how can I ask if you want to share, and it's absolutely fine if you don't. How did it go when you told your mother?
Well, to my surprise, it went very well, but there was a lot of preparation behind it.
Good.
So I told my mom and my aunt, who was my mom's sister, on the same day. My aunt is basically like my second mom because I lived the latter half of my life with her before coming here. The way I did it was I knew that after graduating and starting to work, you know, the questions will come, okay, now you're going to get married and things like that. So I prepared myself by saying, I'm not going to get married. So this is it. And every time they mention it, I say, no, I'm not interested in marriage. So I started planting those seeds in them that I wanted them to lose hope in a way that there will not be any marriage. And then gradually I would increase the volume and say, I'm not going to have kids. And then they would question themselves, and that would really, really trouble them. And I feel sad for doing that, but I didn't want to shock them to say that, hey, I'm gay, and give them that big mountain of headache on them. So I prepared them like that. I say, I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to have kids. And they would question me all the time. I would say, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I'm different. Or I'll just make it vague. But they were like prepared for a few years that, okay, Mohammed is different. And then there was a time when I wanted to get closer to my mom. So I started opening up, because something that I realized over the years that I've been very evasive about almost everything around my life, that she doesn't know me anymore. I mean, she still knows me, but I don't tell her about my friends or where I go or where I travel or any of that, because one question will lead to another question and that will out me. So I was so secretive about all my things, even the seemingly easy things. She would think that all my friends are from high school, because I didn't have the courage to say that I have gay friends or anything like that. So I became so isolated from her that I say, okay, now this is too much. I need to open up. So I started opening up about my personal feelings, my things, like things that trouble me in life, in work, and so many things. I became more vulnerable, and I recreated my bond with her. And then after a while, there was a moment I said, okay, I'm turning 35 this year. I need to do this. Okay. And this year I have to tell them. What I did was I called her, and then I told her all my personal issues, like my problems, without labeling it, without saying that I'm gay. I said, all the troubles that I went through, or the depressive episodes, my ups and downs in life. And she really felt for me. She was very compassionate, and she heard me. And then I told her, okay, I don't want to get married because I'm different. And she would ask, what do you mean you're different? Like, she couldn't pinpoint anything. She said, are you sick? Do you have any illness? Do you have anything? That was her worry. I said, no, I'm just different. I'm not going to get married. And there are other people like me who are different, who don't want to get married. And I'm like, read about it. She said, no, I don't want to read about it. You tell me. It was this back and forth. And then once I told her the whole story, okay, about my ups and downs, I told her, okay, in a few days, I'll call you back and I'll tell you more. And in a way, I laid the ground. She was, I told her the story. I didn't give her the headline. And another day, and I did the same conversation with my aunts too, because they're like, I had two moms. I told her the same thing, and they both have the same reaction. Okay, as long as you're happy, we're fine. Just be healthy. And then I told them that I'm gay. Okay, that thing that I was telling you that was troubling me and all of that, it's because of I'm gay. What do you mean you're gay? This is different. Yeah, it is different. We didn't expect it, but it is this. And they started asking me questions back and forth, just like, how did you know? When did you know? When did this start? Who taught you? All those misconceptions. But they were very open to listen. They were the most compassionate people. I wouldn't have expected a day like that. I actually became closer to both of them after that. And it went much easier. But what made it easier for me too, when I look back at it, is I was prepared for the worst. I would say, okay, this could be the last conversation I will have with my mom. And I went with that mentality, and that made me stronger. And the minute they were okay with it, that broke me. It was like, wow, you're still calling me the next day? Like, I still have my mom? It is kind of a happy moment, but also a sad moment, because the past 15 years, I've lived with this worry that my mom would reject me. And the fact that she didn't reject me, I was rejoicing over that, and how unfair life is. But anyways, I was lucky. It worked out.
We continue our conversation in the next episode, talking more about telling people that we care about, faith, and allyship. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.